Well, hi guys. This is the 21st installment of Just Lover. Thoughts on how to not just live in, but glorify God in the middle of an open quote, bad close quote marriage. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. This will primarily be for men, but I'm sure it would work with women as well. If you want to get a hold of me, my email is resource4christ@gmail.com. Resourceforchrist@gmail.com. Today's installment is going to be on resentments. Ouch. Boy, has it been a tough day. Tough day yesterday, tough day today. I don't know, spiritual warfare, whatever, very, very difficult. I'm feeling very weak, very inadequate. Actually, just studying this before I gave it, I think I relived some of the stuff. But this is massively important. And I think I'm going to say this is going to be a two-parter. There's just too much information. But let me give a couple of quotes here. We're going. The sins I can't forget about her are the sins he chooses not to remember. 1 John 4:12, Hebrews 8:12. One of the ways, and there's the quote, but one of the ways to get rid of resentments I may have towards my open quote, bad close quote wife is to remember that I'm hanging on to junk about my wife that God chooses not to. His grace gives me the ability to love and forgive her in the same way he has already forgiven me and her. So we have to remember God's already forgiven her. He's already forgotten that stuff. I'm literally putting myself in God's place when I hang on to her sin in my mind, her sin. This is not going to be easy to say, but not ready. I want what you want. That's quote number 2. I want what you want. That's Luke 1:38. Mary said that. A high priest couldn't say that, so he lost his voice. But little Mary could. It is not easy, though. Getting pregnant outside of marriage was a stonable offense. Okay? And yet she said, I want what you want. 3, my pain is God telling me that something has taken his place. In love, he wants it back. And my proof text for that will be Revelations 2:4. You have lost your first love for me and gave it to someone or something other than me. I'm paraphrasing Revelations 2:4. Okay? I don't have to know all the details. The reason you're going through pain is Jesus wants to be your number one passion. And the reason we go through pain is because that thing that we placed our hope, faith, and trust in is blowing up in our face. It's not working, and now we're going through pain. Or it was working, and God is weaning us away from it, and that pain is really painful. 4, I'm doing 4 today. Ready? This goes along with today. Selfishness is the number one cause for broken relationships. Holding resentments is number 2. My proof text for this will be Ephesians 4:26 and 27. We're going to go into that next time, but go ahead. This is a translation, the Message translation. Go ahead and be angry. You do well to be angry, but don't use your anger as fuel for revenge, holding on to resentment. You don't stay angry. Don't go to bed angry. Don't give the devil that kind of foothold in your life. I would say that foothold in your marriage. Hanging on to anger, getting revenge, creating a resentment. Number 2 cause of broken relationships. Okay, let's pray. Jesus, thank you so much for loving us. I am completely inadequate in and of myself. I am a broken vessel today, and my only hope of anything taking place today is you. So I want to move forward in my weakness because you said that's when you're strong. And so thank you. I want to get out of the way and let you do whatever you want to do today. Please be with the guys even though I know you promised you would be. Please give them hope today. Help them to stay the course and dare to hope. Thanks. Love you. Talk to you later. Okay, resentments. Is there a possibility that the number one cause of broken, distanced, or destroyed relationships is selfishness? Selfishness is that sinful core reality in us that is opposed to thinking of others better than yourself. Thinking of others as better than yourself. Philippians 2:3. Selfishness simply says, me first. It's all about me. And the sad part is, the majority of the time, the majority of people think that way. And we continue to get to think that way until we get in a 24/7 relationship, which now exposes that we're really self-centered and selfish. Even though you might not have been called out on your selfishness while dating, here it is, living in the 24/7 thing of marriage exposes who we are. We're selfish. Now, here's the problem with selfishness. Selfishness says it's actually you that are making my life difficult. This is who I am. This is how I do things. You're not fitting in with my plan, my fantasies, my hopes and dreams of how things were going. And so when you point out my problem, I make you the problem. You're actually the selfish one. Isn't that interesting? Selfish people always think that the other person is more selfish than them. How interesting. Bottom line is, you're selfish. How do I know that? Because I'm selfish. I didn't think I was selfish until I got married. Then it just exposes all the time. Okay. When you're single, you can kind of get away with it being kind of narcissistic and self-centered. You can escape the 24/7 thing because you're just dating. So you hang out for a couple of hours or 6 hours or whatever, and then you go home and then you get to do your thing. You get to, I'm not going to go into specifics, but you get to do your own thing on your own with nobody watching. You can even do it for a short period of time after marriage, but eventually it starts to set in. And again, I'm not going to do all, there's just tons of different examples, but here it is. My wife has her code book and I have my code book. My code book says this is how you do relationships. The problem is the two code books are never the same. They're never the same. And so then I want to hang on to my code book and she wants to hang on to her code book, and voila, selfishness. Without, again, trying to get into all the details, the first 6 months or so, you kind of get along. But then your open quote bad wife starts to not just notice, but gently verbalize some of the selfish tendencies you have. If you, with Jesus' help, humbly admit that at least a percentage, most likely a high percentage, of the things she's suggesting are true, the result will be marital homeostasis and fewer conflicts, with the result being fewer resentments. The problem is, selfish people have a real hard time being humble. Selfish, self-centered people have a tendency to, if you point out my problem, I make you the problem. And that creates a problem. No more homeostasis. And then because we walk around saying it's her problem, not mine, I don't forgive her because it's her problem, not mine. Well, whenever I don't forgive, it's going to create a foundation for resentments. I think we got that part. This next part. You might not say this out loud, hopefully not, but what might be going through your mind is, I got married so that you would meet my needs, not notice my faults or require me to meet your needs or change. You're here for me. You're here to make me successful, to make my plans work and fulfill my relational fantasies. I'm not here to change for you. You're here to change for me. Bam! Unrealistic expectations, resentments. All of the self-centered, selfish, and unrealistic expectations that were just listed are a recipe for relational resentments. Good. Just looking at my little time deal here. The reason so many of the thoughts I just listed are unrealistic expectations is that, here it is, God wasn't even doing them. God wasn't meeting your expectations. His plan was not your plan, or your plan was not his plan. And so he didn't do what you're now expecting your new wife to do. And so because you're not in that, we're going to look at the relational iceberg a little bit today. You're going to have to go back to installment 1 or 2. But I have expectations of God. He didn't do it. And so then he's a disappointment. And so then I run to an idol in hopes that she or it will fulfill those idols that I created. You tried, you prayed, you asked God for all of these things, and he either didn't give them to you, or he didn't do it fast enough. And ready, now it's her turn. You're expecting her to do for you what God was unwilling to do. You're demanding that your open quote bad, close quote wife be your relational savior. Voila, unrealistic expectations. Voila, instant resentments. I once heard that expectations are the mother of resentments. It might have been C.S. Lewis. I don't know. I looked that up on the internet, but I'm not sure who said it, but I agree with them. When you find yourself feeling resentment, given enough time and effort, you can usually trace it back to some unrealistic expectation. You were supposed to do this. You didn't do it. It's your fault. I'm blaming you. And it was so important to me that I'm not going to forgive you for it. I'm going to hang on to it as a form of relational control. We're going to look at this later. And that makes me superior to you. It's not my fault. It's yours. Bam, resentments. The explanation is fairly simple. I expect you, my open quote bad wife, to do XYZ, and if she doesn't or can't, I'm not going to forgive her for it. I'm going to hold it against her. There's a resentment. And this was so important. I needed this in order to be okay. I needed this in order to feel fulfilled. I needed this in order to have a sense of significance. Now, I didn't verbalize it to you because it would have sounded stupid. I may not even know exactly what it is, but it was this fantasy, this unrealistic expectation. You didn't do it. Voila, resentment. I'm just going to read this. I know I'm saying this out loud and it might sound weird, but for the self-centered, selfish person, this is their character. This is their lifestyle. And again, this is one of those below the iceberg why thing, not a what thing. The what thing is you and I aren't getting along. You and I are having little nitpicking scenarios and little snarky comments. But the why thing is I'm literally holding a resentment towards you. That's why selfishness is so dangerous, and that's why resentments are so common. It's all about me. You didn't do it. I'm holding it against you. Now, what I want to try to do is take this a little bit further. This is a massive, got an ice cube here. This is a massive why talk, not a what talk. Taking this a little further, resentments are relational viruses that, if not dealt with healthfully, what I mean is forgive, through authentic grace and forgiveness, spreads from the person we, open quote, hate, close quote, to the ones we love. Now, in regards to resentment, everybody knows in order to get rid of resentments, ready, you have to forgive people. But we've talked about this before in the last couple of sections. You can't give what you don't have, not even to yourself. To the degree that you have experienced forgiveness, you will be able to pass it on. Since my belief and experience is that most people have never really experienced true forgiveness, they got nothing to give. So it's much easier to hang on to a resentment than to give forgiveness. That's why it's so important to actually experience God's gift form only, no earning, no performance, no paycheck forgiveness. Now I have something to give. If you're hanging on to a resentment, there's every likelihood that you have never experienced God's forgiveness other than possibly at salvation. And then you switched it to, I came to Jesus by, hopeless, helpless. My only hope is you, forgiveness. Now it's up to me to earn my sanctification. It's up to me to earn or to keep myself in this relationship by earning stuff. That's not how Christianity works. And the evidence is, you can't forgive. I'm going to throw this out front. I believe that's one of the biggest problems in the churches today because church members are not experiencing God's true forgiveness. It's about performance. That's why nobody's going to confess their sins at church. Why? The church shoots their wounded. They shoot the ones that sin. The church is looking for heroes. They don't even know how to deal with sin. They just excommunicate, or the people just drop out. They don't know how to deal with that. It's the same thing in our marriages. And that was a little bit of a side note. Okay. Resentment is an unhealthy form of relational control. It's an unhealthy form of relational control. I get to view myself as better than you because you did such and such to me, and now you're just a fill in the blank. Because of what you did to me, I now get to caricaturize you. That means one-dimensionalize you. Kind of those people who draw the pictures at the fairs or in kind of the outdoor malls. They'll kind of draw a picture of you, but if you got a schnoz, they'll make it really big. If you got big ears, really big, got no hair, you're complete, whatever. They take the one thing and they make it like it's the one thing you notice. Well, that's what we do to people when we have unrealistic expectations that we're not forgiving. We hold the resentment, and the resentment we're hanging on to is they may have done 99% of everything right, but the 1%, that's the one thing we hold on to, and we make it really, really big. You lied to me, so you're a liar. You cheated, so you're a cheat. You gossip, so you're lazy. So this thing that hurt me, and it was usually due to my unrealistic expectation that I was expecting you to fulfill or satisfy me in this area. You didn't do it. So bam, that's who you are. 99% of things right, but you did. That's who you are. And now because you are who you are, and I'm the one you did it to, I now get to, in my mind, justify my not forgiving you and holding on to my resentment-filled, unhealthy attempts at controlling our now ready, unhealthy relationship. There's a wonderful book called Hurt People, Hurt People. I'm not going to go into details, but it's Dr. Sandra D. Wilson. And she has this great quote. Ready? Resentment and bitterness are malevolent forms of interpersonal attachment, like being tied with barbed wire to people who hurt us. Fantastic quote. We are attempting to use resentment as relational crowbars to get people we're holding them against to do what we want them to do. I'll have this relationship, but I'll have it on my terms. I'll be in control. Okay, massively unhealthy. Ready? This is a very simple concept. Ready? Relational demand always results in relational distance. Relational demands always result in relational distance. When I'm controlling, I think I'm actually winning, but many times the person is smaller, not as good at verbalizing or fighting or interacting. So because they didn't do as good as I did with my demand, that I think I won the relational war, when in fact I lost it. We may think we've gained control, when in fact we have only diminished intimacy and most likely trust and honesty as well. because I have a tendency now to try to control things and manipulate things, there's every likelihood they won't be truthful. They won't say those things that could potentially hurt or confront. And then I think I'm right when in fact I just have a distanced, unhealthy relationship. Okay, next. I'd like to try to explain my thoughts of resentments being relational viruses. Again, remember I've said this multiple times. Resentments are relational viruses that, if not dealt with healthfully, i.e. forgiveness, we stuff. They fester, and then they get passed on from the ones we hate. I'm putting that in quotes. That hate equals being directed towards the one the resentment was initially for, that I didn't forgive. Usually in my past, I'm going to say it easily could be parents, but someone or something in my past, yes, they legitimately hurt me, but I didn't understand how resentments work. I didn't have the health to forgive. And so we stuff our unforgiveness, it festers, and then it passes from the one that we, open quote, hate, close quote, to the ones we love. Okay? What I'm going to do is I want to give an illustration with my father. During my maturation or growing up period, I think I've said this before, my number one resentment or lack of forgiveness was towards my father. I got to hurry up. And we got like 8 minutes here. Before I get started on this example, though, I want to see if I can explain why resentments towards parents are so common. Okay? Parents are a disappointment to their children, and children are a disappointment to their parents. This is very, very common. I think this could easily be explained through Matthew 7:3, log in the eye stuff. Parents don't see what they're doing, so they see the log in their children's eyes. And I'm going to say the children start to see the log in their parents' eyes. They're literally saying, I can never do it right. The parents are saying, you never do it right. The problem is, and we're going to look at this in a second, children end up being little mini-me mirrors. They start to reflect back to the parents the weaknesses of the parents. Why? Because this is so crazy. The children, for the most part, are just reflecting what has been passed on to them. But the parents don't want to admit their weaknesses, faults, sin, etc., so they blame the children because the children are actually reflecting back to them their weaknesses, inadequacies, faults, etc. Matthew 7:3. Next one. In a sin-filled, performance-oriented family where you get judged based on your performance rather than who you are, Proverbs 17:6 gets reversed. 17:6 says parents are the pride of their children. What actually happens is parents end up being disdained and disrespected because in a performance-oriented, earning, pharisaical family, I'm going to say a shame-based family, the children start to realize that the parents are, don't do as I say, don't do as I do as I say. You may have heard that before. Well, the kids start to see that the parents aren't even, they're writing the rules, they're not keeping them. And so eventually they may be too small and too weak and too whatever, but they may not even be able to verbalize what they're experiencing, but they start to say, you know what? You're not even keeping the rules yourself. You say such and such and you're not doing it. And so, et cetera, et cetera. The child starts to reflect or return to the parents what the parents have modeled to them. And because most of the time the child is too small, unarticulate, that's my word, or unable to think through, let alone verbalize what they're experiencing, they end up holding on to what they're experiencing and feeling. I may not be able to say what I was experiencing, but I promise you this, I sure remember what I felt when I was around you, and that sticks with the child. Voila, child age ready, child age resentments. That the child is really reflecting back to the parents. The parents aren't forgiving the child. Remember, you can't give what you don't have. We give what we've been given. The child wasn't forgiven, so now the child starts to hold the resentment towards the parent. And ready? That resentment that was initially with the parent stays with that child for the rest of their lives, and they have difficult future relationships. That's one of the things we say, baggage. That person has baggage. One of the baggages that we frequently carry with us is unresolved forgiveness issues and unresolved resentment issues. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't know that I've necessarily ever verbalized that before. Hopefully it made sense. I think if I had a group in front of me and they could ask questions, I think it would go better, but I'm doing the best I can. So here it is. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was watching football with my son, and Lori kept walking back and forth in front of the television, and I was just kind of nitpicking her part in my head. I'm not going to say it out loud because I've already been divorced, so I understand. Just keep your mouth shut. But it was just kind of bugging me, what was going on. And so I don't even know. It didn't have anything to do with anything. My wife is amazing, gracious, and beautiful, etc. And I'm going, rah, 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 rah. And because I think I understand resentment stuff, I literally said, wait a second, Lori's not doing anything wrong. And I start, where do resentments come from? My father. So the next question was, Don, how long has it been since you've called your father? I said, man, it's been over a month. So literally I got up, I went back to the bedroom, and I called my dad, said, what's up? Da-da-da. We had a pleasant conversation, hung up and said, hey, stay healthy. Hope you're doing good. Love you. Boom. Resentment averted. Went back, watched television. Here it is, right as rain. Right as rain. I'm so grateful for my wife. I love my son, et cetera, et cetera. No more nitpicking. No way. Why? Because I dealt with the initial core of my resentment. Love you, Dad. And it is the potential unhealthiness of my resentment was dealt with. It was no longer festering. And ready? It was no longer passed on from the one I hated, my father, to the one I love, my wife. That's how to deal with resentments. Hopefully that makes sense. I would encourage you to go back and look at that relational iceberg. That's one or two. But literally, in order to work through this resentment thing, I would encourage you to, and we're gonna look at some Bible verses next time. Amazing verses. Most people think these verses are on anger. They're actually resentment verses, and I think these will help you understand. And I'm saying this: resentment is massively important. Two things that I think get mishandled, most likely more than anything else. Ready? Shame and resentments. Most professional counselors, I don't even know how many pastors know how to deal with shame and resentment. But it's kind of a backdoor approach. You have to understand where the resentment comes from. A previous relationship that wasn't handled healthfully now gets passed on to the current relationships. And the person can even be dead. I mean, my father's dead, and I could still hold resentments towards him. And then shame. Most people deal with shame in the same way they deal with guilt. It doesn't work. Okay, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully we'll be doing another installment tomorrow. Okay, thanks.